Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining the UV Networks webinar on the advanced features of UVexplorer. We're going to get started now. Just a way of introduction, my name is Paul Katzoff. I am the VP of Sales here at UVexplorer. Joining me today is Brian Kap. He is one of our product specialists and has over 20 years experience in the network mapping space. As way of agenda goes, we are going to start with an introduction of UVexplorer and UV Networks, and then get directly into the advanced features of UVexplorer. This should take 25 or 30 minutes for the full webinar, and we'll have a short Q&A following the demonstration. So UV Networks was founded in 2015. We have two main products. One is UVexplorer, the other is UVexplorer Server. And just a way of history on our team, our dev team actually created the network mapping tools for Visio, Altiris, and for WhatsUpGold. So when you use UVexplorer, you're actually using a very mature and experienced product. UVexplorer is a detailed layer 2 asset discovery solution. We are Windows based, and we use your SNMP, SSH, WMI, Telnet, and other credentials to discover your network and provide this to you in a visual layout. We also provide configuration management. This includes configuration backup scripts from routers, switches, and firewalls. We can also notify you of changes to these configurations and provide you with a difference, display the differences between the configurations if there are changes. UVexplorer Server is our on-premise web UI. It actually sits above multiple UVexplorer agents that are installed on different networks. It then provides you a single interface to view and manage all of these different networks and UVexplorer's performance on these different networks. UVexplorer Server also provides RBAC, or role-based access control. This allows you to provide access to internal employees, to management, administrators, and to your clients. Okay, we're going to go directly into the demo now with Brian Kap. During this demo, if you have any questions, please submit it through the WebEx panel. We'll get to the Q&A at the end of this webinar, and if we need to run over and answering questions, we do have time for that today. Brian, I'll pass it to you.
Okay, so for those of you that are unfamiliar with UVexplorer, what you're seeing here is the startup page. We're going to skip the discovery process today and jump right into some of the more detailed features of the product. But ultimately, every scan that we do can be captured as an independent discovery result. And as you can see here, we can have multiple results that we can open at any time. So if I go into our catalog of discovery results, and I'm going to go ahead and open this up, you get a device listing here of all different devices that we found during the discovery in their categories, and then the listings here. Obviously, part of the core value of UVexplorer is that it can automatically build detailed topology maps of the interconnections between all of your network infrastructure and right to your end nodes. We do that across any switching vendor, and also detail access points, wireless clients, and end nodes. So you can dive into these features as part of UVexplorer, but ultimately we wanted to kind of jump into a few things that kind of go unseen as far as the product itself. If we jump over into our tools area, with the topology discovered, we can use things like IPMAC Finder that will help us find any IP address or device on the network. You can manually type in an IP address and then hit Find IP, and it will show you everywhere that IP address is active, and what type of siting it is. Like you can see that this device, is recognized as the individual owner of that device, but this IP address is seen in lots of different ARP caches. Actually, it's my discovery machine, so that's why it's being seen pretty much across the board. But if I type in a different IP address, I may just see where that is. But along with those devices, we can actually go in and, sorry, go ahead and go to all my devices. I can select this device, and you can see that this device was discovered with an IP and a MAC address, and I can go ahead and try to find that MAC across the whole network. So in real time, I can see everywhere that MAC address is seen, and also detail where it is actually connected to the network. So that's a key feature of UVexplorer, is that you can take the discovery results that you have saved and actually search for different devices and IPs, MACs across your entire infrastructure. Another part of that is also you can do layer 2 tracing. So we can use our topology model to jump into tracing out. For example, if say you have an access point and you want to find out maybe something's going wrong on that device and you want to trace it across the network here. By simply picking the two devices, we can see the path that you can traverse from one device to the other. And along with that, we actually have some simple test tools here that you can live ping and check the interface statuses of those devices. So if you're having connectivity issues or anything like that, you can come into UVexplorer, enter the two devices that you're looking for, and it will trace across the network and give you a quick status of whether you could reach it, and the interface statistics or the status on those connections. This is a great way to trace out maybe a connectivity issue and see where the break might be. Maybe that connectivity issue is way downstream and the connectivity comes upstream a lot further. You can quickly assess that and determine the next steps. Along with those, some other tools that are just generally available in different types of little widgets across network applications. DNS testing, you can simply come in and do a quick test of your DNS resolution by typing in an IP range and quickly assessing what might, what's responding and what the DNS names are across your network. You can do scanning as far as port scanning. So if I wanted to see what devices of my discovery result are actually running SSH, I can come in and select these devices, hit scan. This will just take a second here. And we will report back all the devices. You see, here's all the ones that are closed. Here's all the ones that are open. You can kind of look at that from a security point of view. You may see devices that are responding to SSH that shouldn't. You can go ahead and resolve that issue. Or one thing that we've seen users using as far as UVexplorer is, for example, maybe they want to determine how many devices are still running Telnet. So you can just pick the Telnet port and then run a quick scan, and you can see all my devices that are still running Telnet, which in our test lab we're pretty generous as far as what ports we have open, but you can go ahead and try to resolve those port connections. Along with that, you can see here that we have start versus run and capture config buttons. One of the key features of UVexplorer is that during any discovery, you can go ahead and attach credentials to the discovery settings, and it will capture the startup and running configuration. These quick tools here can go ahead and give you an assessment of what devices may or may not have configurations captured and what their status is as far as differences and between the startup and the running configuration. You can also, I'm going to go ahead and open up a different result because this one was not scanned for configurations, but I can go ahead and open up a old result here and look for my start versus run. And I can get this report. And if I wanted to do a real-time capture right now, I just simply hit capture, and it's going to run a quick backup of both the startup and running configurations of the devices in this discovery result. And then we can go ahead and you can see some of these are not, you get an error report based on whether you have credentials to connect to those devices, or you may also get a report that tells you the differences between a lot of these are actually completed, and then you can again go back and look at the differences here on all the devices and drill into them. So you can quickly run your backups of your running and startup configurations, and then all those configurations are actually attached to the devices that we were pulling them from in our discovery. So you can see the running configuration here. You can go back and do comparisons over time, so you can see what changes have been made to different configurations and do an assessment. And these configurations actually can be attached or captured as part of our discovery results, or one of the key features of UVexplorer is that you can set up a monitor to monitor your configurations. This monitor here is set up to capture just the running configurations. You can specify which devices you want to capture those on, what type of schedule you want to do that on, every 60 minutes, every once a day, and then what type of events you want to be notified on. You can log those events, you can send email, you can actually even push those events into one of our partner products, PRTG, so that you can stay on top of all your configurations on your network devices and be notified when those things are changed, and also capture the history of those changes. Those configurations are captured as part of the discovery results, and those histories will be, as you can see here on this device right here, you can see these running configurations through all the time that we run these monitors, and you can go back and do comparisons. You can actually view those configurations and actually save them out for either you can restore or you can do comparisons against from one side to the other, as far as I want to compare different running configurations over time. You can say this one like is a banner change. We can go to this one, see if we can find one that's a little bit less extreme. Looks like this one only changes on this one is a banner, but all those configurations can be captured and viewed for reporting differences. Now you can also, along with this in our tool area, we provide some other simple tools like a simple MIB Walker. This tool is very valuable in testing whether your devices are enabled for SNMP, and can be tested really quickly here just to make sure the devices support, responding to SNMP. Those are critical because of in our mapping technology, we need to be able to talk to the devices via SNMP. So getting a device that is not responding to SNMP, you can use the MIB Walker to kind of test some of those things out. You can set up any IP address, pick any credential that you have set, and go ahead and test those devices. Let's see. One thing that was just been recently added to the product itself is in the configuration management side is the ability to use SNMP rights to manage different aspects of your device configuration. For example, we've had a lot of requests as far as being able to use tools like SNMP to manage things like the aliases that are on ports, enabling and disabling a port, or managing the PoE of a particular interface. For example, say you have some type of device that's connected to your switch that, obviously you can't run across campus or across the states to actually reboot that device. So you can use the PoE status to actually turn that port on and off. So we can do that now. Let's see, I'm going to go ahead and go back to my previous results. Nope. And I can go to a switch, for example. And if I was like, for example, if I wanted to just change the IF alias on this device, I can just go ahead and hit to update it, say yes. And then that alias is already updated in the device. I can also enable or disable that port. I can manage the PoE on that device and go ahead and turn that port off if it supports PoE. Along with that, though, we can also manage VLANs on particular ports. So you can change access VLANs and their voice VLAN, and also edit trunks. So if you wanted to go ahead and edit the VLANs that are being trunked on this port, you simply right-click on that device, pick the PVID and the tag ports, hit update, and that will automatically change that configuration of that device. Makes it really simple for you or any administrator to not have to go into command line mode just to change the connection of a port. We support that across switch vendors. And if they support 802.1q, or we do a lot of proprietary things like for Cisco and other vendors, you can actually just, by using this simple UI, you can just go ahead and make those modifications. Going back to our toolbar, there's lots of other little key widgets here, like CPU load testing. Actually, if you go to any group inside of the UVexplorer UI, you can actually bring up our little tools. Like, for example, if you want to go ahead and test these devices for responsing, you can go into a group like the switches. You can see all these devices are, I'm essentially pinging all these devices to see what their current status is. We partner with other products and actually build our own monitors that do this long term. But UVexplorer can be a great tool as far as diving in and assessing the state of your network. So this is ping. You can do things like, I want to do tools like polling the CPU. So if I wanted to start all this right here, I can actually quickly talk to all these devices and pull their CPU loads. You can see which devices are being really heavily hit on the network in a really quick manner. And then finally, before we get to questions, there's a few things here added here to the toolbar. Jack lookup, room lookup. We've actually done a recent integration with a product called Patch Manager that allows you to automatically connect our discovery information to your wired infrastructure, so you can actually go in and look up different connections based on your campus, building, and Jack label, and actually see which ports of your infrastructure are actually connected to that. You can look up by room. You can actually find any host on your network. Like, you can say, I want to find out where this guy is. You can look at it, and then so there we go. This one's actually going to tell you exactly which port that device is connected to, switch, IP, port, VLAN. And if we were actually tied into a reporting patch manager, you'd actually see the jack in the room where that device is. So it's a great add-on to UVexplorer for the integration between an infrastructure management system and our dynamic topology engine. So it looks like we're getting a fair number of questions. So I'm happy to, let's jump into those. That was kind of some of the areas that we really wanted to kind of cover today. Some of the advanced features of our configuration management pieces, and also some of the quick assessment tools that are available. But if I'm going to I don't know if Paul, if you want to mediate some of the,
Yeah,
the
let's
questions.
yeah, we'll put the ubiquity question for the end, but let's go on to the next one by Marlon, which is does it show which version of SSH we're using?
It currently does not. We actually test when we try to connect to a device. We actually do it in a negotiated mode, but we negotiate that connection, but we do not show which SSH. It's probably a good idea to maybe report back on what we actually connected on. It's a good question.
Yeah, great question. We'll look at that in the future to add that. The next question from Tim is how can we create a topology map with selected devices as opposed to all devices?
So the categories here on the left are grouped. If you look closely, these maps change as you go through the different. So this is your all devices. Here's your core devices and so forth. Down here at the bottom, you actually have a way to define your own grouping. So you can build a dynamic group that you can say, I want just my network devices. I want my network devices in a certain IP range. You can set it up by categories, VLANs, just like this one exactly. We're using the OID of Cisco. So we can see just what we want to see, and we dynamically build the connections in that. So once you've got that built again, so you can either do it statically or dynamically. So these are just some pre-canned categories that we have.
Yep, another great question. So you can actually separate your network into different units or different groups as we have there. Another question from Tim is WMI working along with PowerShell scripting?
So we support both. When you define a Windows credential, you can actually tell us whether it's just straight WMI or you want to use PowerShell.
Okay.
So that's that. Yes, I do see that question, and yes, we've extended it to the PowerShell mode, so you can actually tell us if you prefer to use one or the other.
That's great. That's great. We have a question from Marlon. This is going back to changing the aliases, and his question is the alias the same as the port description in the interfaces?
The port description is actually a read-only field. The alias is an extension of the MIB2, so you can set up the alias. The name can be changed too, but typically most people manage the alias. But you can't change the port description.
Okay, great. Elaine has a great question just regarding the SNMP. His question is, are these changes done by using SNMP? And if so, do I have to give write permission to UVexplorer on the switches?
So when you set up any credential, you have a read and a write. If you supply us the right credential and then have that configured on the device, then we have that ability to use SNMP to make those changes. Now we have other scripting capabilities to make changes in devices using our scheduled task library. We didn't get too close. This is a whole nother topic, and we might do this in another session down the road. But you can actually create your own scripts to do things based on a CLI type of interaction. But these right here would be controlled through an SNMP write.
Great question. Matt's asking, what vendors do we integrate with besides PRTG?
On the monitoring side? Is that?
I think just, yeah, on the, well, probably Lucid Chart, I think is what he's referring to. I'm sure.
Okay, so on the mapping side, obviously we do Lucid Chart, Visio. From the monitoring side, we do PRTG. Again, we've created other integrations, lots of different integrations for the idea of protocols and talking to devices, and patch managers kind of in those arenas. But as far as other types of tools, like, yeah, the documentation side, Visio and Lucid Chart, monitoring PRTG. Sorry.
And we have a lot of requests for integrations into other tools, and these are being reviewed by our dev team to kind of see which one would be most necessary or beneficial to our clients, and in the future look to see more integrations from UVexplorer into other tools. Next question is from Matt. What information can be exported? Is it PDF or CSV?
So anything list that you see inside the product here, when you do print or export, it can generate a document like this, which can be dumped into a CSV, spreadsheet, PDF, anything like that. So maps can be exported into PDF. Details of the devices can be exported. So anywhere you see, like for example, down here in our reports area, if you do an asset and inventory report, you hit print. Here's all the different information. Again, you can dump it into CSV.
And our customers are always impressed with that export list. You see all the different types there, HTML, PDFs, CSVs. We can export quite a few different file types compared to any other network mapping tool out there.
One other item is we're looking right now at the UVexplorer standalone or agent. The UVexplorer server opens up a whole new world as far as reporting, because we actually have an active API, a REST API that you can actually connect to, and you can actually request the information directly from the product, and you can do anything you want to it after that. So that's an option too.
Yeah, and that's a perfect segue. We do have a webinar coming up on May 11th. That'll be on UVexplorer Server, and we'll go over that REST API as well as the other features inside of UVexplorer Server as well. Our next question is from Gil. Is finding hosts limited to switches? Can you get the ARP info from firewalls as well?
Yeah. Yes. When we do find host, we kind of correlate the idea of we start at layer 2 for the MAC to IP. I'm sorry, MAC to port binding, but then we also do ARP on that. You can, if you also, again, you can use IP MAC Finder to find anywhere where the ARP is viewing that. As far as connectivity, yeah, we can use we do use ARP in different scenarios where there is no layer 2 forwarding available.
Yeah, that's a great question, Gil, and it will work on the firewalls, routers, switches.
As well as wireless devices. We'll tell you which AP something is connected to.
Yep, that's great. Next question is from HN. Is it possible to get VLAN diagrams?
VLAN diagrams. So if you go down to this type of dynamic creation, you can set it up so that you're only mapping certain VLANs. Like if you want to do VLAN 1, VLAN 2, anything like that, it'll filter this list and actually build you a map that is based on your VLAN. So you can go ahead and create a device group. You can call it VLAN 1, and then just show all the network devices that are participating in VLAN 1. There's your map, VLAN 1.
And we have a lot of clients that really love these VLAN diagrams. It's something a lot of our competitors have a little bit of issue with, and so it's something UVexplorer does very well on our side. Next question is from Adam Miller. Does the port change save to the startup config of the switch?
No, you can set it up to do that. We're trying to decide whether we actually do that as a setting on the overall changes, or if you just want to go ahead and we could prompt you and say, hey, made some changes, you want to go ahead and commit them. There's different ways you can do that, but currently no. But we're investigating a way to let you decide that instead of us just doing it by default.
Okay. Great. The next question is from Elaine. I think this is a pretty easy one to answer, but is it planned to introduce SNMP v3?
It's already there.
Yeah, we already have that in there. And we didn't really touch on it too much here just because our network was built in or has the V2 credentials, but we do have V3. Okay, next question is from Mark. Can you create a group filter based on capabilities, like all devices with SSH enabled?
Not based on ports. You can. That's been an interesting discussion as of late. We have had the request for us to start scanning for open ports as part of discovery, and then we could actually add that to the list here. Currently, we do not do that, but you can do it based on categories. So switches, firewalls, those type of things, you can just check off what you want to see here. I mean, that is a form of capability. So for example, we show in here whether device is SNMP enabled or as a network device or something like that. So you can go ahead and click those off. But that's an option, but we don't do it on ports just yet.
Yeah, great question. That's something we could add into our feature list in the future. Next question is from Sridhar. Can we pull Palo Alto firewall configuration backups?
Yes. We
Okay.
got a number of customers that are already doing that. They're big, by the way.
Next question is from Eric. Do you plan to make it browser-based at some point? Pretty easy question.
So again, we're looking at the UVexplorer client and agent standalone. We have a whole product UVexplorer server that these can report into. And I mean, if you want a sneak peek, this is it.
And it is browser on-premise browser-based as well.
Yeah. So you can authenticate. This is what Paul talked about earlier. We have a authentication. You can set it up so you can have different agents report into different networks. Our MSP customers love this. Our large enterprise do this because they can break out their networks based on sites, buildings, anything like that. The agents all report in, and then they can get different views of the network based on what they want to look at. So the answer is yes.
Yep, and our next webinar on May 11th will be on UVexplorer Server, so I'll send out some information and invites to anyone that's interested in that. Next question from HN. Can UVexplorer upload configuration to a group of devices?
So the scheduled tasking, you can go ahead here and set up any kind of configuration script that you want and apply it to multiple devices, either all at once or as far as manually or on a schedule. So going back to the question of can any changes that we make to the VLANs be automatically saved to the startup configuration? The answer is we're not doing that right now, but we do have customers that actually schedule every few hours for us to just go ahead and change, take the running and configuration and save it to the startup configuration. Likewise, if you want to put up a script and run it against a bunch of different devices, like if you wanted to change passwords or anything like that, you can create the script here, select the devices you want to run it against, and hit run, and it'll do it.
So the capability is there. It does involve some scripting, but you can definitely change those configurations for a whole group of devices if necessary. A great question. Next question is from Matt. Is UVexplorer able to handle LACP ports in the map?
LACP, so you mean link aggregated ports? Is that what you mean?
That might mean.
So
we'll see if that clarifies that. Go ahead.
So obviously we detail link aggregation. So everything that we do, we dig deep into the idea that yes. So okay, we do show both, but you kind of have to browse over it to see it. You can actually enable this to show all links, and it will show those on both sides. But yes, we do detail each port in the lag.
Great. And our last question, it looks like, is from Ricardo. Is there any way to export the equipment information into a single CSV file?
I guess there's different reports. Asset and inventory report is all here. So name, IP, MAC, serial numbers, models, those things those are already available. If you're talking about all the information as far as related to IP interfaces, bridge ports, all this fun stuff that we've gathered, again, come back to our UVexplorer Server webinar. We can show you how the API works, and you can extract all that information. We haven't really given you. There is no button exactly right now to dump everything into a file, just because there's so much complexity to the data. There's no one single CSV that we could just dump it all into. But if you have more specific questions, we can detail that in our next server application. I think we did skip over the ubiquity question.
We did. Okay. We can go back to I put that off to the end. So the question on the ubiquity is, let me get back here to the top.
It is.
All right. How's the ubiquity integration going, from Jeff?
Oh, well, it's done. So basically what you have to do, we support along with our protocols, there's HTTP protocols. You can see here that we deal a lot with like Ubiquiti, Ruckus, Meraki, different ways of being able to connect to devices. So what you do is you can set up your Ubiquiti controller. With a HTTP, we talk to their native language and actually can pull everything. But yeah, so we support Ubiquiti from both sides. If you have Ubiquiti that supports SNMP, we merge that with any proprietary data we can pull out of the controllers. But yes, we do.
Great. So there's a little bit of customization to get that to work, but we do integrate into that. And I just want to speak to Ricardo as far as exporting the information for all the devices. The issue is there's a one-to-many and many-to-many relationship in those in that information. So exporting the CSV is a little difficult. We are working on that, or that is something that's been brought up. There's a little bit of issue to resolve that, but we're going to go on. There's a few more questions. If you do have questions, go ahead and ask them. We'll definitely get to your questions as we go. The next one is from Marlon. Does UVexplorer support Juniper switches?
Yes, unfortunately, yes. They do things their own way, but yes, we do.
We do support those. Great.
Yep.
Let's see. And Matt, is Aruba Central or Extreme Cloud IQ on the roadmap?
The answer is yes. As far as we already support, if you can see, we do, Meraki, the Ruckus Smart Zone. We already support Juniper Mist. And if you are interested in supporting some of those other environments, I know that Aruba Central is already on the roadmap for the next quarter. And as far as Extreme IQ, we don't really have that a customer looking at that right now. But if you're interested, we're happy to work with you. Some of those integrations go much better if we have a customer to work with, because we can't always set up those labs on our own. So we'd be happy to talk to you about it if that's on your roadmap. But yes, we are. The reason we're in the discovery business is we're always adding more discovery and integrations as we go along.
And it's always changing as well. All these providers and manufacturers are always changing how we interact with their devices. So it's almost a little bit of a cat and mouse game. So great. If there's any other questions, we'll wait a moment, see if there's any more questions from the attendees.
Let's see.
And if not, I don't see any more questions. I'd like to thank everyone for joining our webinar on the advanced features of UVexplorer. It looks like we have one more question from Michael. What information do you collect on VMware?
Virtual hosts, serial numbers, virtual ports, virtual switches, pretty much anything running statuses of VMs, all that's available. All you have to do is specify the VMware credential, and we will interrogate the virtual server and pull out all of its hosts and workstations and everything like that. And we will detail it down to the virtual port groups and try to map it for you. So what you would see in those scenarios is, when you look at a map, is you'd get to the edge and you'll see the server here connected to the switch, and then it'll break out all the virtual environment behind it.
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to wrap up our presentation. Thank you, everyone, for joining this webinar. If you do have any more questions or like to find out more about UVexplorer, please reach out to myself or Brian Kap. We have our information on the screen right now. Happy to help you, take you through UVexplorer. It's a very mature, established product, and once you get in and start using it, you'll really find it as a lifesaver on that network management piece side on your side. So thank you, everyone for joining, and have a great day.